Hello and welcome to today's Conversion Corner. I'm going to talk about a couple different options for a different configuration for your Raiders, Dark Eldar Raiders, or honestly even the Ravagers. My Dark Eldar army, and Dark Eldar is in quotes, is really more of a hybrid. It's not really a traditional Dark Eldar army. It really is one of my Exodite branches. So they're not really going to be using the same kind of Dark Eldar equipment. The same Raider technology, the hull designs and things may be utilized, but the Exodites will be a little bit more artistic and will vary things up a little bit. So I decided that not all of my Raiders are going to look the same. So everyone I get is going to be slightly different. I went with one fairly simple conversion and one pretty complex. But again, these are going to be unique models within my particular army. So I'll start with the simplest one that I did, and that is this typical Raider. There's not a whole lot that I had to change in this particular one, but again, tried to get away from the traditional Dark Eldar knives and blades angle on this particular one, because this is actually going to be used by a variety of units. In fact, I usually use Trueborn Cabalites in here, shooting type units. So they're really not going to be interested in all the blades thematically. Matter of fact, in the rear, I took the rudder off and replaced it just with a single flagstaff. Kind of like this design harkens back to some of the Lantine-rigged ships, galleons and such in the Mediterranean. So I decided to actually put two sails on. Now normally, the Dark Eldar Raider has a capstan here or mast post where you'd have the one sail, and then back here is where some of the control mechanisms. In fact, the control mechanism is there on this particular model. But I wanted to have this two sail look, and so I moved the actual front gun, replaced it with the masthead or mast base that would normally go in the front. I cut her down and put it up here in the top. Hopefully, I'll try to see if you can see it there. I'll take the sail off as well. So there, put the masthead there, replacing the gun mount. And then here I took a Dark Eldar flask an Eldar flask from a Wraithnet model and set it as some sort of a Eldar technology in the hull to take up that one spot. Now, in the bow here, I took a Cold One Knights Cold One head that I had, cut the neck so it would be on the curve. As its head is actually curved slightly on the mount, so I wanted to cut it so that it would mount flush, straight. Mounted the barrel of a Dark Lance in its mouth, painted it gold, and now it looks like a Exodite dragon type prow-mounted weapon, very ornate. These actually lines up pretty well with the way I picture my Exodites. So very simple conversion, doesn't take a lot of work. The most difficult part is that front mast base, because it has to fit in the front just right so that it sits at the right angle, and you're able to, there it is, to glue it down to the base and have some stability in this position. You want to be sure that this mount doesn't break. Alright, so now of course I magnetized my sails just to make it storage a little easier, and I'll have the additional benefit of when it's wrecked I can just remove the sails as an identifier. So a very simple conversion. And now the more complicated one, my Dark Knife clan, very close combat type of a clan, and so I wanted to theme its raider Again, I'll take this off to make it easier. I want to theme its raider more as a vicious, close combat type of a assault vehicle. So, in this case, I took the rudder and mounted it upside down. Very simple change there. On the front, I used some of the blades and mounted them in such a way to make a prow that that counts as my not a shock prow. The is it chain snares? I think that allow you to tank shock. That's what this becomes. And then I took all of the extra, what I call the dragon wing sails here, changed and put them in. The first two were glued in the rear here. Okay. And these are control surfaces, so they do act as a rudder in some ways. And those are left as is, nothing fancy to them. Drilled in right above the deck and glued them in place. Now the ones up front, it's a little different. In that case, I had to move this out of the way there. I had to find a point where I could drill slightly into at an angle into the hull, and to create almost like pectoral fins on a fish, so that would dip down, provide visibility in front for the driver, and not get in the way of anyone who might be firing on it. And that, I just really liked the way that looked. So the rear masts, or sorry, the rear sails are in the back, and the foresails are in the front that way. And then the front gun I left in its original position, and it actually, I have multiple ones. The one that came from the other kit has the bright lance, or sorry, dark lance mounted in there, so I can swap that out. Now, since this typically uses my Dragon Warriors, which are the incubi unit that I have, this usually is armed with the disintegrator cannon. It's perfect for softening up the hard targets, the Terminators and power armored equipped enemy just before the incubi charge them. So the remaining parts of the conversion really have to do simply with just details. So back here, I made sure I put 3 blades down, and up here I used another one of those Eldar flasks from the Wraith Knight. Again, throwing some Eldar technology into this to make it emerge between the typical Dark Eldar technology and my Exite technology. So these are 2 different configurations for the sails and flags and what have you that you might consider when you do your raiders. Of course, you don't have to. I've been building them the way they are out of the box stock. They look great. In fact, the next raider, I am going to have one that will be very normal, very standard. It's just that I had these ideas and I wanted to attack these ideas first. The way I kind of approach modeling in building my armies is I get the idea for what it is I want to make, and I make that as the next unit. So it's not necessarily the most effective unit that's the next one I buy, or it's not necessarily trying to build stock kits to build up my army. I want to accomplish certain things that I have in my imagination. And so these were 2 things I had in my imagination. I want to knock those out before I actually built a regular standard, what I'll call a vanilla Dark Eldar Raider. Alright, so hope you get some inspiration from this particular conversion corner, and especially in how to go about tweaking some of the kits, Dark Eldar kits. Maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't. That's entirely fine. Again, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish with your army. Go ahead and feel free to comment below, share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.